Malaysia and USA, probably the two most culturally different places for the most part in the world, at least in my experience. And I grew up in America. I am now in Malaysia. I've been here for close to 6 months. I've spent most of 2024 here. And so I'm not an expert, but I think I now have quite a good perspective on some things I want to talk about, some cultural differences, and just talking about how some of these cultural differences translate into real life and how it affects me in my day-to-day, or just things I've noticed, things that I have talked to Malaysians about. I know you guys sometimes think I don't really have like any Malaysian friends here, but I do, especially in Kuala Lumpur. I have a pretty decent group of friends now, and we talk about some like deep topics, some stuff that I wouldn't be sure if I should discuss on YouTube, political, anything with religion, politics, stuff like that. And so I oftentimes will run things by them, or will just like meet, and I'll kind of go over some stuff I'm going to talk about in a video to get their opinions and to learn, I don't want to speak out of context on anything, or I try to only speak about what I know, and I only know what I know from my experience. So take from that what you will. I'm not an expert, like I said, but this is my perspective. And there's a couple different things I want to talk about today. So I think the biggest differences would be social hierarchy, religion, food, communication, personal space, and then I have two more, which I'm not, education. I'm not like super familiar with personally, but just from like talking to some people who went to school here or currently go to school here. And then, time, sense of time, because we treat time very differently in America versus here. And so, I think we should start off at the top. Social hierarchy, I think this is a good one. I think it's a bit complex and, maybe something I'm not so well versed in, but I'll give you some thoughts on it. In Malaysia, there is a lot more social hierarchy. There's a lot more respect when it comes to certain titles, or somebody's age, elders, respecting your elders, things like this are like extremely important here, right? And in America, it's, of course, you're supposed to treat everybody well and you're supposed to treat elders well, but we don't place such an emphasis on such an emphasis on it or importance to it the same way that you feel it here. Very different. For America, there's a real emphasis on individualism and equality, treating everyone the same, no matter what age, gender, race, whatever. These are like big in America, and in general, we're just less formal with everything, and addressing people by their first name and stuff like this, not really using titles too much. Maybe in certain environments, you might, right? Certain workplace environments or something like that, but we don't, it's very informal. So we just don't place too much emphasis at all on social hierarchy. It's not like something we think about. If you ask an American about like social hierarchy in America, they will kind of be confused, or they'll be like, I don't really know what am I going to talk about? Because it's not something that we like even discuss really in school. It's like, we have the president, then we have like teachers, and then we have things like that. That's our hierarchy. That's how we think of things, of like who's in charge, who's the boss, how do we refer to somebody, stuff like that. But otherwise, it's like, we're just not thinking about it. All right, so next is religion. It's a big one, right? I'd say in general, like Malaysia is extremely diverse, and most people coming from America would come here and it would feel very different and very just culturally diverse in a different way, but since I'm from New York City, it's kind of like the cultural melting pot in America. It's like, if there is anywhere in America that is similar in that way, is very multicultural, it would be New York City. And so to me, it's a little bit less of a cultural difference, but to 95% of Americans or more, they come from states that it's just mostly white people or mostly black, and it's like a bit segregated with those two, and that's about it. Then you have certain cities where there will be some Asian population and Indian population, but like you mostly see it in New York City. Of course, Los Angeles, like another cultural melting pot, but not in the same way. New York City, you have everything. You have every country. You have just every single type of person. And so, yeah, to me, I can't even say that it's like more culturally diverse here compared to New York. But like compared to America, it's a huge difference. And like, yeah, it's just exponentially more diverse with the cultures and religions. And so like in America, we like to say like we don't really care, what religion you are, especially now. The culture is kind of changing, but like in the past, it was very much more, Catholic people sticking with Catholic people, and Jewish folks sticking with other Jewish folks, and that's just kind of how it always went, and that's probably how it goes in most of the world. But now it's becoming a little bit more like whatever, you are what you are. We don't really ask somebody's religion maybe so often as in the past. It's not even really discussed that frequently, I think, because people know everybody has such different views on it now, and so they don't even want to really get into religious talk. It's becoming more like Malaysia in that way, where it's like, oh yeah, maybe let's not get into serious, religious political discussion, because we may have a couple different people here who have very different viewpoints and different ways of living their life, and you don't want to offend anybody, and to me, I am very accepting of the way anybody wants to live. Like I genuinely don't care. I've always kind of been that way. So yeah, I think, yeah, these are some huge differences. When it comes to religion, like I grew up Catholic, and now I don't really identify as anything. As much as I do believe in God, I believe in a higher power, I'm not so much focused on any specific God or any specific church, anything like that. So yeah, religion, I'm not going to go too deep on it. Like I said, it's not something I want to get too political about, but I thought just giving some like, some general perspective on that, I think that was what I wanted. Now, the next one, food. Food is huge, especially in Malaysia, because I don't know, there's something about it within the culture that it's just such a big thing here. It's like, I think partially because it's like quite a non-drinking culture, non-alcohol consumption for a lot of the population. And so food kind of takes precedent. Food kind of takes the forefront of those other things people would be doing, going and having beer or partying or whatever. It's like here, no, it's more like going out on a weekend and stuff is like, yeah, going to get food with a couple people. That's kind of what it is. In America, we just don't have such a specific cuisine or anything that we are so strong in. We're just a hodgepodge of different cuisines. It's just the way it is. And again, I'm from New York, and so we have a bit of everything. We have everything. And so the food scene there is incredible in New York. It's expensive, but it's very good. And you have everything. You have not just everything, you have things that other places don't have as well. You have like unique presentations and places, the design of the restaurant and everything, different experiences that they curate there that are cool. Not that I'm like super doing this very often because it's like expensive kind of stuff, but in general you have everything there food wise. Now Malaysia is more focused on Malaysian cuisine, Malaysian food, but thankfully like that is not very strict. There's so many different things. It's very much Chinese and Indian influenced and based for the most part, but it's very different than the Indian and the Chinese food that we have back home. Very different, more authentic, stronger flavors, bolder flavors, more fragrant, fragrant spices, I'd say. Definitely spicier, more chili usage here. That's like the number one difference, I'd say, would be like spicy food in Malaysia. people are just kind of used to eating spicy food from a young age, whereas like back in America, it's almost like a weird little taboo thing about it, where it's like I feel like more people don't enjoy spicy food, and if something is like really spicy, you just almost assume that it's not gonna be like their favorite thing. Where here, it's like I would just assume somebody would love it if it's spicy. But yeah, it's just a huge difference. We're not used to it. So coming to Southeast Asia in general, it's a little culture shock with the food and the spicy levels. So they usually try not to make things too spicy here, especially when they're serving it to Westerners and stuff. Like, I've not had too much issue with spice here. Thailand is very different. Indonesia, it's much more spicy food. But in Malaysia, you don't really even have to worry. You don't have to think too much about it. For me, maybe I'm just accustomed to it, and because I've had spicier, it's not so bad. But besides that, I would say like the food scene here is so strong, and it's not expensive. Like, you can get quality food for a good price. Now, when it comes to food quality in general, especially with like meat, especially with beef, with lamb, you are going to get better quality in New York, or in America, period. I mean, the freshness, the supply, the amount of supply, the organic farming, and just a lot of like grass-fed and free range type stuff. If you're buying eggs or you're buying steaks, all different types of cuts of meats, many different butchers. Here it's good, but it can be bad at times. At times, like I've bought chicken that has smelled bad quite a few times. I have struggled to find like any organic farming going on, really. It's not the best for me for beef and lamb. I eat a lot of meat, even for chicken. I think, coming from the US, we are a little spoiled with our food quality and the abundance of different foods that we have available. Even when it comes to the price, honestly, you can get cheaper beef in America that is higher quality than you can get here. So if you're cooking at home and you're regularly eating beef, lamb, even chicken, I would say, in the States, it's just cheaper. It costs less, and the quality is much higher. It's very easy to get it. You go down the street and you can get any type of minced beef. You can get 3 different fat percentages of the beef. Do you want 80% fat? You want 90%? You want 96%? It's like, there's just different levels to the food. And so when I discuss food, it's not like, Malaysian food versus American food, or restaurants in Malaysia versus restaurants in America. It's all encompassing. There's a lot to it. Food quality definitely comes into play, but I don't think it's a massive problem. I think I was eating out here every single day, no stomach issues, nothing like that. I just have a lot of like food sensitivity problems, autoimmune issues, and so I'm very aware of things and sensitive to things, and have very specific things I like to buy. And that kind of thing can be hard here. But for like the average person eating out, eating Malaysian cuisine, even cooking at home, like, it's no problem. And it's pretty affordable. Just don't eat too much beef or lamb unless you really have the money. That's what it is. That's pretty much food in a nutshell. One thing I forgot to mention is fast food. How could I forget? It's just very different here. Like, the way you think about fast food here, especially places like McDonald's, I'd say especially specifically like McDonald's, KFC, those are probably the biggest, right? Like in America, we think of those as pretty bottom level, pretty bottom feeder food places, And as much as probably as most Americans have, ate it growing up quite a lot, I think some percentage of the people, typically, we stop eating that food at some point. Maybe because we ate it too much when we were young, or maybe because we were exposed to so much fast food growing up. And America is such a fast food hub of the world, right? yeah, maybe it's like now, I don't know. I don't care as much for it, or I spent many years without eating it. But now, after being here and seeing like the way Malaysians think about McDonald's, right? That it's like it's special. It's like that's a special place. You go out on a Saturday with your friends. You go to McDonald's and you get a nice meal, and that's like it's a nice experience. And I agree with that, but like only because of being here and kind of seeing that firsthand, and like kind of going with friends, getting McDonald's, like it's different. Like, I don't know, in America you just wouldn't, if you say to your friends like, let's go to McDonald's, should we go to McDonald's, they'd be like, what are you talking about, dude? They would literally be like, what are you talking about? Why would, or KFC, they'd be like, what do you mean let's go to KFC? They would, especially in New York, you would just be almost appalled. You would be offended. Like, McDonald's would be somewhere you go when it's convenient and like you're by yourself, probably. Guilty pleasure, or just grabbing something, right? But when it comes to like making a night out of it, with your friends, like, no, they're gonna look at you sideways. So any of you Malaysians, if you go to America, keep that in mind. We think of fast food a little bit differently. Now we have like elevated fast food. We have Five Guys. We have Shake Shack. We have places like this that are like an elevated McDonald's, a McDonald's times 100. Like an actual proper burger and food. And so these places are fast food, but we think of it as a little more, oh yeah, we could go there. It's Friday night, 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Like, oh yeah, let's go over there. That could be nice. That could be fun. But we just don't think about that for McDonald's or KFC. So that's the difference. So this place that I'm filming in, I just kind of like stumbled in here. I like didn't plan on filming in any specific place, but it's right next to the KL Bird Park, the KL like Butterfly Park, Botanical Garden. It's like next to it. It's like near it. And I'm staying over here, and so I just like kind of walked in here. There's nobody over here, of course. And like, perfect place for a video. But if you're wondering, we're in Kuala Lumpur, KLCC basically, Chinatown, KLCC area, something like that. But yeah, people always ask me where I'm filming, and I half the time, 90% of the time, I don't mention it. I'm just like filming somewhere, and people are like, what is that park? What is that? And then I see the comment like 5 weeks later, and I was like, oh, well. Next topic is communication style. Two very different ways of communicating between Malaysia and USA. I'd say what sticks out most to me would be, with Malaysians, I'd say politeness, is huge. You can kind of feel that very quickly. Just in a different way than we don't even think about it. What we might think is very fine and normal conversation might feel impolite to a Malaysian person. I think Malaysians are typically a lot more subtle, a lot less direct. And Americans can be very direct and like just kind of say what's on their mind. We kind of, me especially, if you follow the channel, I just kind of speak my mind. I just kind of say things. And so, some people could occasionally get offended or take it away that it's not meant to be taken or wasn't meant to be delivered, right? But otherwise, like, there's not real communication issues. Like, if you're talking about Americans communicating with Malaysians, it's like very, very fluid, and it's not like, it's not weird. Obviously, Malaysians speak good English, which is very helpful. But just in general, from like a cultural standpoint, it doesn't ever feel weird. The conversation doesn't get weird. It flows naturally. It feels like it's always quite friendly and like lighthearted, and like, and then I also have some deep discussions with like Malaysians that I know a bit closer, and like it just feels like I'm talking to another American for the most part, who grew up a little differently, right? By the way, it's Taman Etno Botani. Taman Etno Botani. That's where we are. But I think like Malaysians tend to communicate their, how do I even put it? Like, I think they tend to use body language. They kind of tend to, yeah, subtly like use politeness and body language without needing to say too much necessarily. And like I can understand what they want me to get from that, what they're trying to say, right? And it's not quite like that in America. We very much need all the context, and we give a lot more less. For me, I'm very much body language because I think it's important, one, for the camera, but just for like, yeah, in general, right? But it's not how we're like cultured. We're not, it's just not accustomed for us. God, I can't speak sometimes. As I'm speaking about communications, I'm like stuttering on my words. But that's also because I just kind of turn the camera on and talk. And so when I'm trying to do something like very, I don't know, specific like this and in depth, sometimes I'm like, man, maybe you should, I don't know, figure out a way to have better memory and maybe create a plan, something like that. I did. I made like the subjects that I wanted to talk about, but that's it. But I think it keeps the vlogs honest, and I think it keeps them like my true personality coming out instead of just like thinking and writing something. So yeah, that's that. But that's it. Communication, I'm done with it. I'm done speaking about it. All right, next topic I wrote down I want to talk about is personal space. So Americans are quite into personal space. We like our personal space. Even with like friends, stuff like this. Typically, like I'm speaking in generalizations here. I'm speaking from myself, but also what I know of America and Americans and people that I've met, right? And like we do value our personal space a bit. And here, I would say it's a little bit different. I would say Malaysians tend to be a little bit more, okay, so let me separate this. When it comes to like friends, people that you know, I feel like Malaysians are very comfortable and like almost a bit like touchy in a friendly way. And this is not like sexual, it's nothing like that. This is just like personal space on a friend level, on a human to human level. It's like, yeah, with friends we are not typically that touchy or anything like that. And here you will see a lot of times where it's just like you're not even sure what's going on. But then, if you know that this is kind of how people here act sometimes, and it's just like a friendly thing, then it feels normal. But initially, first coming here, I don't know, just observing, right? And talking to people, it's like, it feels a little bit different and you're not really sure what to think. And then there's the other side of things where when you're talking about complete strangers, like for example, Malaysians really, like their personal space with like strangers, I'd say. And the biggest thing that sticks out to me, or a good example I'd say, is like several condos I've stayed at, probably 4 different condo buildings I've stayed at here, are all the ones that have a sauna, all the ones that have a steam room or sauna. They have like a good sized sauna, and they will only allow one person in there at a time. You have to schedule it, like can't, which is to me it's such a polar opposite of what I experience in America. Like specifically with this example, or especially in somewhere like Europe, like sometimes there are like multiple mixed gender, multiple people in there nude, and it's like they're just very fine with it. I mean, me as well. I'm fine with it. I lived in Berlin in Germany for a couple of years, and like this is where I was really exposed to that kind of like freedom feeling, and so it rubbed off on me, and this is how I am now, right? But I think here, I actually had comments, because I mentioned this before about the sauna, and a comment was like, yeah, like us Malaysians don't like sharing our personal space with like strangers. What is going on here? Anyways, yeah, the comments were like, we don't like to be in a small space like that with like someone we don't know, And so, yeah, to me, it's very different. For Americans, we don't care. There can be multiple people in the sauna, and we truly don't care. Of course, it's probably better. I'd rather have it to myself. Of course, I'd rather have it to myself. But I mean, like, I don't know. It doesn't bother me not to. And I don't know how much of this is rooted more in religion, or rooted more in like, having people see you exposed in any way. You're sweating a lot in a sauna. And so I don't know. Of course, we typically wear like just some shorts, bathing suit, and that's how I would go into a sauna, right? I'd imagine, like, if it was shared here in Malaysia, same way as the pool is shared, the Malaysians would be wearing proper attire. They would be covered up. For religious reasons, they would, be wearing something to cover themselves up. They're not wearing like a bikini. And so to me, it's like, I don't know how much they are, if you are going into a sauna alone in a condo that you live in the building, it's like, well, then what do you do? Then are you wearing, are you still completely covering yourself at that point? If you're not going to be around any people in the scheduled sauna session? Or is it still something where you would probably completely cover everything? That I don't know. But this is just an example of how different it is with something like this. And again, it's like rooted in religion. It's rooted in like just like this free thinking thing that we have in America and in the West, where it's like, I don't know, you would never need to be the only one in the sauna. And that's just an example, just because that has come up in my life now multiple times. And they always say you can't use the sauna if you're Airbnb-ing. So pro tip, if they ever ask you, oh, how long are you staying here? You just say, oh, I signed a 2-year contract, whatever. I just signed a contract 1 year. Then they're like, oh, nice, cool, welcome. And they show you to the sauna. If you tell them you're there I've even said before I was staying for 6 months. And he was like, oh, sorry, only like long term. And I was like, Jesus, but now I know. If you have anything to add, please leave a comment below on any of these things I'm talking about. I think all of this kind of stuff is like best suited for open discussion. And I want to know what you guys think about like my perspective on Malaysia and like the culture, I also learn a lot from you in the comments. Like, I'd say 75% of what I know about Malaysia and like, what dictates where I'm going and what I'm doing is mostly the comments, Yeah, I can't reply to a lot of them, but I do read them. So, don't ever hesitate to leave a comment. I really appreciate it. The last thing I want to touch briefly on here is work-life balance. I think this is another thing that is quite different. In America, we are very, very workaholic, work overtime, work, this age to this age, give your everything, forget about, social life, even like family time. Whereas here in Malaysia, it's not quite like that. Surely there are jobs and different sectors where there is overworking and stuff like that, and this kind of mindset. But in general, it's much more take the time you need for your family time, essentially, and not burning out, not overworking, and having this balance in your life. You can tell it's just a much more treasured thing here. Where in the U.S. we don't really care about it until it's a problem and until we are in the situation, and then we are thinking about whatever, or we're depressed, or we're having psychological issues, and it's like, oh, well, maybe this is because you're working 70 hours a week and your relationship is crumbling, or this kind of thing, This happens a lot in America because of the work-life balance and like the relatively toxic, like overworking culture and mentality. Now, it's not to say don't work hard. And maybe sacrificing your social life in your 20s to build a business or build your career is a good thing. It's going to be a different balance for everyone. Some people are going to be more happy working 60 hours a week, getting some family time in, and like really pushing for some strong position in their career. Maybe it's going to be very happy, whereas somebody else may be much more happy working 30 hours a week, spending most of their time with their family, and having not too many financial goals, monetary goals in life, stuff like that. So everybody has different wants and needs. How materialistic are you? How family oriented are you? How much family do you actually have? All this kind of stuff. But there's a clear difference between the way people balance work back home in America and the way people think about balancing work, even school, but like especially work here. When it does come to school, education, I've not gone to school here. I went to college for 1 year in America, dropped out. I made a lot of money when I was young that year, and like decided to quit school. Not bragging, just saying. I was actually failing in school. I was never very good in school at all. But when it comes to education, what I've been told by Malaysians is that here it's very focused, it's very rigid. It's very much like you have a very specific set of things to do with your schoolwork and achievements and goals. And like, for example, in America, it's like very focused on creativity, your participation, and like your unique points that you can offer, stuff like this. It's becoming more and more at the forefront of like education in America, and like those things that jobs care about are stuff like that, are standout factors, and like the ability to form creative ideas. Like these things are important, and maybe like in some education systems they're not that rewarded, or it's not really thought about. And what I'm told is that Malaysia is more like that. It's more just academic focused specifically, and I think that is across Asia. At least in America, it's a thing. It's like I guess a stereotype, right? That like Asians are going to be smart, or they're going to be their parents are going to be very strict with school. They're probably going to be good at school. They're probably going to be, and again, I'm generalizing, but this is how it usually pans out, right? And so this is why that stereotype exists for us. It's because the school system, the education system is completely different in America versus in Asia. And so like our parents think differently about it. They teach us differently. They parent us differently when it comes to like getting your schoolwork done and maybe getting grounded or punished, stuff like this. Very different ways of parenting for that. And so this is the result of that, right? It's like, two very different ways of thinking about education and learning. For me, I don't know that it was a good thing. I don't think like the American education system did me well. I went to public school. A lot of the public schools in America, especially in cities, bigger cities, it's not great. It's hit or miss. You may get a good education, you may not. You may have good classmates, you may, be with a bunch of delinquents, criminals. Usually it's a complete mixed bag. You have one of everything. You probably have a criminal over here. You have somebody who's going to be a doctor here. You have someone who's going to be a teacher. You have a school shooter in the making. You have one of everything in each class. And so it's a nice little mix. But yeah, I was not into school. I was not good at school. I didn't feel like the curriculum was good. I didn't feel like my teachers were good. I was very, very obese, overweight, so I didn't have a great social life. And so school sucked. School was whack. But I also don't think I would have been very happy if my parents were trying to take a very hard stance on me with school and like pushing me really hard and stuff. Maybe it would be good for me. I'm not saying they did right or wrong even. It's just like, I wouldn't have been happy. And so the fact that I was able to switch to homeschooling in 9th grade, I switched to homeschooling and like did it all online, and I didn't even do it. I didn't do it. So 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, high school essentially, I didn't do it. I was just not motivated, and I was making money online. I was more focused on like business, digital marketing crap. And I didn't care. And so my mom wanted me to graduate, and so she did all of it for me. She did like 3.5 years, 3 years at least of my high school, just so that I would have the document that I graduated. And I got it, and I never really used it, but you know, I'm not a dummy. I just don't like school. I think there's book smarts, I think there's street smarts. I think it's good to have a mix of both. But yeah, that's that. I wanted to talk a little bit about everything in this video, like a culmination of everything I've been learning and, I don't know, talking about with my friends here, and just like discussing, and things that come up in the comments and things that go through my mind. It's like I wanted to put it all into like kind of one video. Just figure I'd make it titled like Cultural Differences, you know, USA versus Malaysia, right? Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Again, drop a comment. I'd love to hear your input on any of this crap that I'm talking about. And drop a thumbs up too. That would help the video for sure. But yeah, have a nice day, and I will see you in the next video.